Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is clasp. We're going to take a look at some definitions or ways that this verb gets used. Our first three definitions are all pretty closely related. The first way you might hear clasp used is to mean to grasp something tightly with one's hand. So in this particular definition, we might use this word as an alternative to hold because we're trying to really emphasize that this holding is being done tightly. A second way you might hear clasp used is to place one's arms around something, some object. And a third way you might hear clasp used would be to hold someone tightly. So here you might think of this like hug or embrace. A fourth way you might hear clasp used is to mean to press one's hands together with the fingers intertwined. So it would be kind of that movement or that action. And then a fifth way we can use the verb clasp is to mean to fasten something using a metal device. And it won't probably surprise you to learn that clasp can also be used as a noun, and it's going to tie back to this fifth definition. We'll look at some pictures and discuss that meaning in just a few moments. You should know that clasp is a regular verb. To make the progressive form, all I need to do is add ing to form clasping. The past tense and participle forms of this verb are going to be made by adding ed. Our base verb, clasp, ends in an unvoiced P sound. So our past tense ending is going to make a T sound. It should sound like this: clasped, clasped. Okay. Now, I don't have any additional phrasal verbs for us to study today. This is going to allow us to practice using the verb clasp in a couple different verb tenses. We're going to start with the imperative. Okay. Now, you might remember the imperative as being a command. So we're telling someone else to do something. Okay. And what's unique about the imperative is that we don't have a subject. So most of the time as we practice our sentences in the affirmative and the negative, we start with a subject. I, you, we, they, maybe a name, a group of people, an object, right? But we're not going to do that here in the imperative. We can just start with the verb. And our subject here is implied. It's you. So we're just using the base form of the verb here. An example of this might be clasp his hand before you cross the busy road. Right? So you might hear someone else tell another person, hold maybe your younger sibling's hand, right? But again, this idea of using clasp here is to really emphasize hold it tight, right? Don't let go. If we want to make a negative imperative sentence, we can do that by starting with do not and then the base verb, or we can use the contraction don't. Okay? So an example of this was don't clasp your necklaces before you store them. Heard this as I looked for some different examples. There was sort of an expert with jewelry talking about the proper best way to store things, and her idea here was that the necklaces wouldn't tangle as much if they're not connected, clasped, or they're not fastened. That was our synonym. Now let's take a look at the simple future. Today, we're going to use be going to make simple future sentences. Now, with be going to, we do need to pay attention to our subject. Okay? And that's because our form of be will change based on the subject. If our subject is I, we're going to use am. If our subject is you, we or they will use are. And if our subject is he, she, or it, then we'll use is. Okay, so we have our appropriate form of be, then we're going to use going to, and then the base verb. Many times we'll see this verb clasp used in literature. And again, it's kind of to help us picture this idea of holding someone or something tightly. So I saw it was kind of a long sentence in a piece of literature, so I just took the beginning for us to look at. But it was, now I'm going to clasp my hands together. Right? So here someone's talking about their plans. There was a lot more description that went on, but I think you can see how this person is forming simple future. If we want to make a negative simple future sentence, then our structure is going to be to start with our subject, then our form of be, then we're going to use not, then going to, and the base verb. Here's another example. This purse isn't going to clasp. It's too full. Right? So when I think of clasp, I think of jewelry, but again, we can use it to talk really about fastening anything, kind of closing or connecting. Finally, let's look at making a yes or no question in the simple future. To do that, we're going to start with a form of be, whichever form matches our subject, that subject comes next. Then we have going to and our base verb. An example here, are fans going to clasp their hands during this last minute of play? So I saw an example of this again, kind of talking about like nervous, worried, really engaged fans watching a particular sporting event. Now let's spend a moment looking at some words related to our verb clasp. And as I mentioned earlier, clasp, same spelling, same pronunciation, can be used as a noun. When you hear it used as a noun, one way might be to refer to that device that allows you to fasten, interlock, or hold some objects or parts together. I've included a picture down here in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, this one furthest to the right. Here's an example of something we might describe as a clasp. You might have seen this on a bracelet, a necklace, or other device again. So the idea, we're going to be able to interlock or connect. You might hear someone say, oh no, the clasp on the necklace has broken, right? That would be an example of a way to hear the noun form used. The noun clasp could also be used to describe an embrace. Again, it might be helpful to think of like a hug. So you might hear that embrace being described as tight, right? So again, I feel like we would hear this mostly in literature, really descriptive writing. A couple other related words you might hear are clasp knife, a clasp nail. I've included pictures of these objects as well. I'm far from an expert in either of these things, but that idea of sort of connecting things, sort of, or embracing, folding, connects to those meanings as well. So here is the picture of the knife. Here is the picture of the nail. Thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you have a great day.